You've had this for 15 years?
It starts at age 11, so I'm 26 now. I'd count it as 15. So the first thing I remember from taking it is that I went from having this sort of, being a highly sensitive person,
Mhm.
with a sort of vivid imagination and all that, to having my emotions kind of flattened out really hard. I started like speaking in monotone. It even makes things hard. Like if you want to like clean your house, it's hard to do that because you can't like conceptualize what it should look like. All this is attributed to just depression, right? Again, I had no idea that it might have been actually the pills causing those things.
Hey, what is going on, guys? This is Mark Millick here with the Moral Medicine YouTube channel. So today we are going to be interviewing Jevin. Jevin is a PSSD patient that's had PSD for, I actually don't know for how long, but Jevin, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Yeah, 15 years, let's say.
You've had this for 15 years?
It starts at age 11, so I'm 26 now. I'd count it as 15.
Holy crap. Yeah, I forgot to ask you that before the interview started. I didn't realize you were suffering with this for so long. So before I ask you the first question, man, let me just give a quick overview of what PSSD is. It's post-SSRI sexual dysfunction. It's induced by taking an SSRI, obviously. I don't think PSSD really encompasses the full range of symptoms. It's not just sexual. It's anhedonia. It's neurological. It's the brain fog. It's the whole nine yards, man. So it's very similar to post-finasteride syndrome. So, having said that, Jevin, if you don't mind, man, yeah, what was your life like before you even got this? I mean, it's been 15 years.
Yeah, well, before I started on antidepressants, it's really just my childhood, right? So as a kid, my personality was I had a much wider range of emotions than I'd say the average kid did. So I was very expressive, had very high highs and also kind of low lows.
Yeah,
So like I would get very excited about things that most kids wouldn't get excited about, or for like longer periods of time. And I would also get like upset at things, probably for a longer period of time than most kids. But in general, like I said, very very sensitive and just very expressive. But yeah, just generally happy childhood. Nothing too out of the ordinary. This kind of segues into what started me on antidepressants. Given that, right? If I'm a happy kid, why antidepressants? Well, it kind of progressed to the point where age 10, I was up late into the night just crying and crying and crying. Um, and my mom didn't really know what to do about that. At first, mom brought me to some counselors to make sure that nothing was going on,
sure.
no abuse or anything, but there wasn't any abuse. Um, and so I didn't get very far with the counselors. So then at age 11, um, that's when we saw the psychiatrist,
Mm.
and that's I spoke with the psychiatrist, and then we decided, we're gonna start on Zoloft. That should help me out.
At 11 years old.
Yeah, yeah. And to be honest, mom didn't know any better. I didn't know any better.
Of course. Yeah.
So that's what we did.
So, how long did you take the drug for, and what was your experience on it? Did it help at
Um,
all?
well, I mean, it started on Zoloft, and over the course of many many years, it's cycled through many many other
Oh,
drugs, just on
yeah.
and on. So all the way up until about 25, I've been on and off various antidepressants. Um,
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you now?
I'm 26, so I've
26.
been off, yeah, yeah.
Antidepressants
Um,
now?
no, I've been off for a little over a year now.
Okay. So
It really
just
wasn't until 25 that I even knew about PSSD or got on the Reddit forum or any of that. And I never really connected the dots as to my symptoms and things until then. So I didn't know that some of the things I'm experiencing now were potentially caused by these pills.
so yeah, just to clarify, you are off at this point. You've been off for about a year, you said.
Yes, yes.
So you started realizing, I guess, through your own research. I mean, that you could be these symptoms or these effects you're having were from the SSRIs. What were you having? I mean, what were you experiencing that made you decide to start doing research on this?
Well, I mean, mostly the sexual
Okay,
effects.
sure,
Because I did know at least, at least you reading the bottle, it says you can cause sexual side effects.
right.
And some of it I thought was just me or just my personality or just a quirk about me. But more over time, I just started thinking like maybe these things really are, causing some issues. And that's when I started to look into it. And then I realized, oh, it's more than just sexual things. This could explain a whole lot of things.
Yeah, yeah.
And but yeah, to get back to the original question, it started at 11 on Zoloft, and it was kind of just off to the races from there. Um, yeah.
So you took it for, I mean, holy crap, man, like around 15 years roughly. You were taking these different medications. Were they all SSRIs, or did you mix any like benzodiazepines in there with them?
Oh yeah, it was more than SSRIs. I mean, it was SSRIs. It was also SNRIs, and
Okay.
then more recently, I have been also on benzodiazepines as well. Um,
Cocktail thing. So, what did you start experiencing first? I mean, I guess you said you just, I guess, kind of realized in your teenage years you weren't developing sexually. Is that right?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll take you through it. It is kind of many years to condense here, but we'll start at 11. So the first thing I remember from taking it is that I went from having this sort of, being a highly sensitive person,
Hmm.
with a sort of vivid imagination and all that, to having my emotions kind of flattened out really hard.
Okay,
Um,
sure.
I I started like speaking in monotone. Um, I just uh, I, I stopped making friends. So like I had kind of a group of friends that I had when I was a kid,
Hmm.
and going into middle school, a lot of them were in the Coast Guard and stuff, and so they all started to leave, because their families in the Coast Guard. But I
Right.
stopped like replacing those friends with new friends, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I became very like emotionally cut off, not just from myself but from other people.
Hmm.
So it was hard for me to like connect with other people.
Hmm.
um I uh I guess like the sexual symptoms started then. It's kind of hard to tell really because I you know this
You
uh
weren't developed sexually at 11 years old, man. That wasn't even something that was probably
right. I mean, I'm going into puberty then,
right.
but I guess I at 11 I started to learn about masturbation, right?
Yeah,
And I gave it a try, and I could never finish.
sure.
So part at that time I figured just, oh, well, maybe that's just something that happens when you get older, or
Hmm.
I or just uh, but perhaps we could say it started around then with anorgasmia. I remember it did stop the crying spells at night, but that was because I was so blunted,
You were numb to emotions, and an 11-year-old shouldn't be feeling that either, man. I mean, you said you had sort of a zest for life when you were a kid. You were living the innocence of being a child, and then you're prescribed this SSRI, and then everything just goes flat after that.
Yeah, so the thing was is I was dealing with like the emotional dysregulation and blunting, and I was also still having anxiety, which sort of uh, that I wasn't even really in tune with,
Yeah.
and so that made it even more difficult to develop socially. Yeah,
It
that's what started on Zoloft at 11, and so let's go forward a little bit in time,
sure,
and then eventually we decided to switch meds. I think I was like 12 at this time, and we switched off of the Zoloft, and then we started. I believe it was a combo of Lexapro and Wellbutrin.
sure.
Um, that actually lifted the emotional blunting a little bit.
Okay.
So that was definitely Zoloft doing some of that. And however, um, it still didn't like work for the anxiety, nor did it work for the depressive symptoms.
Hmm.
And on this combo, this is when I remember getting a little bit of numbness in my genitals
Yeah. Gotcha.
on this combo. But again, I had no concept that it was the pills causing this. I was at this point very socially isolated. I kind of just spent all day after school like playing video games because I was just content to do that.
Yeah.
Um, I wasn't really connecting with my peers at all. I wasn't really fitting in. Um,
What
so I
age was this? Probably around
yeah,
16.
12. Now I'm still talking like 12,
Oh,
13
you're
here.
still, I gotcha. Preteen years.
But I just started developing really bad habits of just shutting myself in and playing video games all day,
Sure.
which of course didn't help at all. But
Right.
um, so over time, let's see, then we switched to after Lexapro, I think we switched to Celexa, um, and after Celexa, um, this is moving again forward in time, 13, 14, 15. After Celexa, I switched to Cymbalta. And Cymbalta was a lot heavier than the previous meds. Um, I think I was 16 when I started going on Cymbalta.
Yeah.
On Cymbalta, um, I the blunting came back a whole lot stronger again.
Okay.
Um, so I had like a little reprieve after Zoloft where the blunting wasn't as severe. On
Hmm.
Cymbalta, I was just on like a different planet um, in terms of understanding myself, understanding other people.
Yeah.
Um, I just had like no it was like my empathy was like switched off, kind of, just I stopped caring about like my own family. Um, I stopped feeling like love for my family. Um, it was just yeah, it's kind of messed up. Um, there would be flashes of time like where the sensations would come back, where I would feel that empathy or that connection, but it was kind of fleeting.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, it wasn't totally gone, but it was just for the like 95% of the time, I was just kind of just aloof, you know.
Yeah. Just absent
Yeah,
mentally.
uh,
Yeah.
um, and just in my own head. Um, at this point, my genitals are very numb. Um, again, just not. I think around this time too, I even stopped having nocturnal emissions. So I still had those, as a preteen and as a teenager, but I think with the Cymbalta, that's when those stopped happening.
Yeah.
Um, I also started to get anhedonia at this point. Um, not all the time, but just for stretches of time where I would just uh, like stop enjoying music.
Yeah.
Um, I'd stop even enjoying the video games that were kind of my escape.
Hmm.
Um, uh, just I would kind of just go into these pits. And that's also around the time when I started getting suicidal for the first time, too.
How old
And
started feeling?
again, all this is attributed to just depression, right? Like
course. Yeah.
diagnosis. And again, I had no idea that it might have been actually the pills causing those things, but
Right.
I figure just those are classic depressive symptoms.
That's
So I
what
figured,
they chalk it up to, man. Just depression, obviously, and they just want to apparently give you just more and more medication as a means to try to suppress that. If you don't mind me asking, when did you start feeling suicidal? At what age? Were you still in your preteen years at this point,
no,
or
no, 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 no. 15, 16.
okay?
I think 15 was the first time so I had a breakup at 14
I
where I
got you.
felt pretty bad, but I don't remember being like suicidal about it. I had
Sure,
another thing at 15, and that's when I felt like the first idea of like actually killing myself.
I got
It's 15, I think. Um, and then 16 was when it started happening like consistently, where I'd have like multiple stretches of time where I was just in my room by myself, just turning that idea over in my head,
yeah,
over and
yeah.
over. Um,
And did you have any support from your family at this point? Did your parents, did you talk to them about this? I mean, at this point, yeah, I guess I got so many questions here, man. So I apologize. You hadn't connected it to the medication at this point yet. I'm assuming.
no, no, I thought that I had a severe case of depression,
Mm,
a severe case of anxiety,
hmm
and that these pills were supposed to be helping me, and that perhaps I just was like on the wrong one, or just like too low of a dose, or
Yeah, yeah,
um, uh, and I did have support, and honestly, the support that I did have probably why I'm still here today.
well,
Um,
it's great to hear.
yeah, I mean, my mom was there the whole time. She was a lifeline for me. She was
Hmm
deeply concerned. And then around going forward some more here into college, 17, 18, that's when
hmm
I started getting erectile dysfunction.
mm
So up until this point, I was still at least getting like erections, right?
mm
Um, and having like libido. Around 18, I stopped having erections. I stopped having like morning wood. I
mm
stopped. My libido just tanked.
hmm
I stopped even being like aroused by girls.
mm
Um, and yeah, that that uh, that lasted quite a while. I'm actually still dealing with some of that right now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I'm getting a little bit of it back, but yeah, 18 is when it really, um, I guess, got became like total
yeah.
in a sense.
Well,
Um,
obviously, at 18 years old, you shouldn't be dealing with any type of erectile dysfunction or low libido or any sexual issues. Obviously,
right.
uh, that's not normal. But a lot of people who do have PSSD or who have been taking antidepressants for a couple of years throughout their teenage years, I've heard of this happening, man. I mean, this isn't unheard of. This is actually becoming a lot more common, but I know how frightening that is, obviously, because it's emasculating. You lose your confidence and everything. And it's just horrendous.
My self confidence was just in the drain at that point. Because too, it's not just the fact that I wasn't really getting far in relationships with women, but just socially in general, I just had never really developed
Yeah,
socially.
yeah, yeah,
I didn't know how to process emotions. I wasn't able to like read other people's emotions at all, or I never like really learned that skill.
yeah,
I just I just never really had friends, not like really deep friendships. I mean, I had people that I hung out with at school, I guess, but like
yeah.
outside of that, it never really developed.
Yeah, you really can't connect with people. There's so many layers to this, man. It's not just the sexual issues. It's also, again, the emotional issues as well. The isolation you feel,
Yeah.
the the lack of motivation, the anhedonia. I mean, this goes so deep, man. And my heart goes out to you. And I know this isn't easy to talk about, Jevin, so I appreciate it. Uh, so if you don't mind, I mean, yeah, what happened from there, man? You're 18, 19 years old. I mean, where do you go from there?
Well, it's kind of strange how things shook out. I mean, what I did was this is like a weird kind of coping mechanism, but I just buried myself in my studies.
Sure.
So
I think it's
I guess it's like a serendipitous effect. But I did. I devoted my full time and attention to my studies because that's basically all I had. That was my whole routine, my whole schedule, and
yeah,
sort of my whole way of living was just to show up, go to class, do my work, study.
yeah.
Um, that's kind of how I lived my life. And so I got my degree. I got my master's degree.
Good for you.
Um,
Good for you.
yeah. Out of that. But it was a struggle the whole way through. Um, many times where I was just doing okay enough and then just falling into a pit, and then doing okay enough and then falling back into a pit over and
Did
over.
you?
Um,
Sorry to cut you off real quick. Did you have any cognitive dysfunction at this time? I know you had the anhedonia and the lack of enjoyment, but did you have any type of dysfunction cognitively?
a little bit, yeah. So, oh, I should point this out too. This is other symptoms started at 11. But aphantasia. I had all the way. Let's go all the way back here. So 11 years old on Zoloft.
Yep.
I acquired aphantasia. So I used to be able to. So for those that don't know, that's not being able to form images in your mind.
Is that what
So
like you can't visualize?
yeah, I can't visualize. I used to be able to as a kid. I used to have a very vivid, like florid imagination. I, you know,
Aphantasia, you said. Is
huh?
that aphantasia? Is that what you
Yeah,
call it?
aphantasia. So at 11, what happened was this is another symptom. So I remember I used to read books a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and at 11, when I'd read my books, I stopped being able to. I used to be able to like picture the scene in my mind as I'm reading the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do the scene in my mind, do the character voices in my head, and just generally like connect with the characters. And
Yes. Yeah.
I remember just kind of very suddenly I stopped being able to do that. It was kind of disconcerting because I was no longer able to. I would just reread the same lines over and over again,
Mhm.
unable to get the content of the page into my head. Um, and
Wow.
also, I stopped watching TV and stuff too because like shows and things. I stopped being able to connect with the shows. But yeah, total aphantasia, as well as like a loss of the internal monologue. Um, that was kind of just zapped out of my head, and I still have that. I still don't.
I-
Occasionally,
yeah.
occasionally now, I might get a little flash of color, but it's very like once in a couple months that might happen where I get a little glitter of color in my head. But
Everything you're saying resonates with me so much. I didn't know there was a term for this inability to visualize because I've had that since I've had PFS over the past 3 years. I used to be able to visualize everything when I would read a book. I used to have this inner monologue. I mean, it was almost
yeah,
like having a self in some sense. I mean, it was my motivator. It's what I would tell I would talk to myself in my head. I don't
yeah,
have any anymore, man. I can't visualize a future. I don't have any passions anymore. I can't. Yeah, I mean,
right.
I pick.
It even makes things hard. Like if you want to like clean your house, it's hard to do that because you can't like conceptualize what it should look like.
You can't see the final product. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. So if you can't like do that, it makes it very hard to perform some tasks and yeah.
well, to advance yourself in life too, because I had a very specific plan I wanted to follow in life. Like I still wanted to go for my master's degree. I wanted to master other hobbies. I wanted to master martial art, jujitsu, and before I got PFS, man, I mean that was my plan. I could visualize everything in my head. Okay, year one, this is what I'll do. Year two, by the time I'm 35, I'll be here. I can't do that anymore, man. And when you lose that, like you lose all your drive and passion altogether because you can't see the end result.
Right. That
It's horrible,
I
man.
agree with that. Yeah, yeah.
Well, let me ask you that. So from here, you mentioned, that you developed that pretty early, like 11 years old, but you were mentioning, before you got back to there, you're talking about when you're 20, 21, kind of in that time frame. So do you want to pick up back there and kind of talk about what your early 20s was like?
Yeah. my memory around this time, it starts to become a bit of a blur because I remember at this time I think I had oh god I'd made it to the end of my master's, didn't know what to do,
Yeah.
had no real plan as to what happens after I got my degree because again I was kind of just living one day at a time, just show up, go to class, study,
Yeah.
that kind of thing,
Sure.
with no real plan as to what happens after. So eventually I did get to the finish line, and I I couldn't figure out what to do. So eventually I think I moved back in my mom's house here.
Okay.
Um, and then I want to say I think I started on like um, another set of antidepressants
Mm.
once I came back here because again I wasn't really getting off the ground.
Sure.
Um, and I think I had a pretty bad reaction to it. In fact, my memory of like 21, 22 is almost complete blur.
Wow.
I The only parts that I really remember was that I would wake up in the morning, I'd like get out of bed, I would drag myself over to my computer, and I would just play like clicker games or like idle games or whatever, just like all day. And then I would eat, and then I would like go to bed. And if anything else happened in that time period, I just don't remember it. Um,
Wow.
I think that was like a year or so of that.
Hmm.
Um, that was basically my life. And then eventually, somehow, I just kind of snapped out of that a bit
Yeah.
and decided to just go back for a PhD.
Wow.
Yeah. I figure that I was at least good at that. Like I was at least good at
Sure.
school.
Right.
I had that going for me. So I
Yeah.
figure why not go back for more, you know?
Fair enough.
Um, and so I did that. Um, this is around COVID time
Okay.
point. Um, I got into one school with full funding.
Hmm.
Um, and that was the school I went to. That kind of decided it for me. That was the only UNT.
Yeah.
Uh, all the other schools I either didn't get accepted into or they had no funding for me.
I got you.
So
Okay.
I went to UNT with full funding.
Yeah.
Um, it was difficult because now at the very least I had like some family here. You know, over in Texas, no family or anything.
Yeah.
But um, it was a bit of an adventure. It was at least a change of scenery, change of pace for my
For sure.
life. Uh, but the damn thing was, is yeah, COVID. So I moved over there into my apartment, and now I don't even have a choice. I can't even meet with the people in my cohort or whatever because we're all in lockdown. So I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
now I'm in my apartment all the time over there,
Mm.
teaching classes, taking classes, all that over there for like the first year.
Yeah.
Which that didn't like do any favors for my mental health. But I started. I s- um, I started up on some antidepressants again. There, I think I switched things up again
Okay.
eventually. 'Cause I reached out to. I had to see a new psychiatrist because different state,
Yeah.
and we started up on another regimen of antidepressants. I
Mm.
was I think I'd actually gone off of them when I was like 21 at my mom's house.
Okay.
Uh, Again, I can't remember
Sure.
precisely because my memory is such a blur.
Yeah. No worries.
I remember I started up on some new ones when I was in Texas.
Okay.
Um, and again, I didn't really go anywhere with it. I started becoming suicidal again. Um,
Wow. Okay.
I started hating getting up in the morning. I wasn't connect even when the lockdowns eased and I started seeing people in my cohort again. and I still was having trouble fitting in and really connecting with them.
Yeah.
And so I started getting suicidal again
Sure.
because I was just like, God damn it, I'm trying. I tried and tried and tried, and at this point, I was like, I was trying again. I was really trying to pick myself up, and I
Sure.
still wasn't moving forward,
Right.
the way I wanted to.
Yeah.
And so I just remember thinking like, God damn it, I
Mhm.
can't deal with this.
Yeah. You break this cycle.
Yeah, like, just, is this how my life's gonna be? You know, is what I remember thinking. Just, is this what my life's gonna be? Just a
Yeah.
whole bunch of struggle and um.
I think it's
So
kind of yeah.
yeah, go ahead. You can.
No, I think I was going to say, I mean, number one, I really appreciate you opening up about that. And I understand just the struggle of thinking, is this how my life is going to be forever?
Yeah,
Just that way and just feeling this inability to connect and socialize with people and just feeling so alone and isolated.
yeah,
I just think it's important to note that, in a lot of cases, this is what psychiatrists do. They say, well, here's an antidepressant. And when somebody feels like that and they go into a psychiatry office, they just give them an antidepressant. And they say, you should feel better. You were already on antidepressants at this point, and you had been on them for 12 or 13 years at this point.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if anything, they were just making you worse. They were exacerbating the feeling. I mean, you said before, when you weren't taking the antidepressants, you didn't really feel suicidal. You're still kind of uh, working through life. But once you went back on this one, you said you started to feel suicidal again. And you're just thinking, God damn it. So we're getting really close to the point then when you started to connect the dots and realize that all these antidepressants that you had been on for years
yeah.
was causing your symptoms. So, yeah, how did you end up discovering that?
I think I just stumbled. I was just on Reddit, and I just like saw a comment on just some random bullshit, but like, and someone
Sure.
just like plugged r/PSSD, and I
Mhm.
followed it,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my god, just,
You're like, I can relate to this.
yeah, um, yeah, that just again, it just opened me up to like, it connected a lot of dots for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I saw that all those symptoms that I was having that I just attributed to either my personality or just my biology or whatever was just was probably just all the pills.
So what did you do? Did you come off all the antidepressants you were on at that point? If you were on any, what was your response?
Yeah, I wanted to withdraw from them. Um, at that point, I was on I think I was on Zoloft again at that point, and I decided to taper off the Zoloft.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah,
And so how long has it been since you've been completely off these medications?
a little over a year now.
In over a year. So the big question is, have you seen any improvements?
Not really.
Okay.
Um, Not at this point.
So having said that, what are your current symptoms?
So currently, anorgasmia, genital numbness. I still have severe emotional blunting.
Yeah.
Um, I have aphantasia as well, still,
Right.
and anhedonia. So currently, that of all the things, really, the anhedonia is the one that is most difficult
Yeah.
uh, to deal with.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like, it's hard for me to. Yeah, I don't really connect with music right now, um, which he was a big escape for me.
Yeah.
But uh, I, I I I'm at least armed with knowledge that this stuff can in the future abate over time.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
And I've got a very good therapist that I've been seeing for a few years now,
Hmm.
who's been a tremendous help. So
Yeah, I think that's good to know. So yeah, for some people, it does go away over the course of time, right? It can take a couple years, but I think people do see improvements. Now, unfortunately, not everybody does, and that's why I always push the importance of donating to the PFS network or donating to the PSSD network because we got to figure out really what is going on here, and why people are experiencing such an array of different symptoms, and the intensity varies as well. So I think we need to really support that research and also support more people coming on and telling their stories like you just did, Jevin. I really appreciate you opening up here, and it's not easy. It's obviously not an easy thing, but every time somebody steps up and tells their story, it legitimizes the issue a little bit more. I mean, I'm amazed that doctors don't even acknowledge this. And I guess I forgot to ask you that. Have you been to any clinicians? And if you have they addressed this? Have they acknowledged it? Do they believe you?
I've seen a few doctors. I mean, not specifically for the sexual stuff,
Yeah,
uh, because well, maybe we'll get around to it. But I've had other health issues and things too,
sure.
and but my psychiatrist, he at least acknowledged, PSSD is real and that kind of thing, and he did apologize, and accept his apology. I don't, I never, experienced any malice or ill will from him. I just think that generally he had no idea the scope or the extent to
I think
what
generally speaking,
capable
most
of.
doctors they're unaware of what's happening or what these medications can do to people. I don't think they have any ill intent. Obviously,
Right.
they need to at
Um,
some point believe you and acknowledge that okay, there is a subset of people that take antidepressants that end up developing these permanent or semi permanent effects and all these different types of symptoms.
yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, he's
uh,
acknowledged it, but of course, what are we going to do about it, right? I mean,
like I said, research, man, supporting the research. I think that's the most important thing we can do at this point. But you're right. In the immediate time frame, what can you do? I don't know. Wait, I guess. I mean, try to live a healthy lifestyle. For some people, they say that improves them. For others, it does nothing. It's
yeah.
it
I
varies.
That's essentially what I've done. I mean, that's what I'm doing is I'm trying to just do right now I take a very pragmatic approach where I just try and do everything to give my body the best chance to heal.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So I try and exercise, I try and eat healthy,
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
those kinds of things and just give myself a chance. So
Absolutely. I
that's
think
kind of
that's
what keeps me going at this point
hundred
is
percent. I think
knowledge
that's
that
absolutely
I can get better. I believe that I can get better, and
yep.
that's kind of what's keeping me centered and through all this.
And I can relate to that because I tell myself every day, you can get better, you will get better. Maybe for you, it's not going to be naturally. Maybe there is going to be some type of medical intervention you'll need at some point via the research, but you will find a way out of this one day. And I do believe that if we all continue to just collaborate and work together, and especially again share our stories like you're doing here, I really think, man, we can get out of this in a reasonable time frame, and we can figure out exactly what's happening to our bodies.
Yeah, yeah,
So having said that, Jevin, before we hop off here, man, do you have any closing statements? Anything else you want to say to the audience?
mm, yeah. I guess just be very cautious about if you are depressed, about seeing a psychiatrist because they probably are not aware of just how extreme the medication can be,
Right,
or how permanent the side effects can be.
right,
I urge that you try um, everything in your power to address the root causes of what might be triggering your depression. And then, of course, the damn thing about all this too is that for some people, the pills just work. That's a whole nother side to this. That it's crazy, but for some subset of people, it just works.
I think it's really important that you highlighted that because we're not trying to be biased here. Obviously, we can
Yeah,
recognize that there are people that can take antidepressants, or in my case, there are people who can take finasteride for hair growth and have absolutely no symptoms and be asymptomatic and see the results of what these pills were intended for.
yeah.
So,
But I just say use them only as a last resort.
yeah, I think
Only
that's
as a last resort.
really well said. Really good advice right there, because I agree, man. I think you need to focus on sort of the homeopathic sort of approach first. I mean, focus on your diet, focus on lifestyle, focus on your interactions, working out, just taking care of yourself. And I think in a lot of cases that will help, at the very least, alleviate, depression and anxiety. And I agree, the pill should absolutely be a last resort. Um, so yeah, very well said, man. Uh, Jevin, we really appreciate you coming on the channel, man, and sharing your story. Yeah, man, thank you so much. And we will see everyone next time.
All right. Yeah.